Antisemitism played a major role in Adolf Hitler's thinking, and in Nazi ideology. Government propaganda campaigns were meant to make the German public believe that the Jewish population was evil, and even subhuman. This led to the persecution and murder of millions of people during World War II. All carried out by mostly ordinary people, who either believed in the government and in what they were doing as being right, or those who could benefit from the elimination of the Jewish members of their society. But where did this view of the Jewish people come from? Jewish people were actually discriminated against in Europe for hundreds of years before Hitler's rise to power. Hatred of the Jewish people can be found even as far back as the ancient world. By the 9th century BCE, there existed two Israelite kingdoms in the Southern Levant, a region of the Middle East that covers approximately modern-day Israel, Palestine and Jordan. The Kingdom of Israel was to the north, and the Kingdom of Judah to the south. Both kingdoms were made up of groups of people who practiced a religion that would be later transformed into Judaism. Early forms of their religion believed in many gods, but only worshipped one. Later forms only believed in, and worshipped one god. Between the years 732 and 720 BCE, the northern kingdom of Israel was invaded and conquered by the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and many of the inhabitants were displaced. The Israelites were moved to other parts of the empire while Assyrians were moved in to take their place. In 597 BCE, the kingdom of Judah was conquered by the Neo-Babylonian Empire. In 587 BCE, a revolt against the Babylonians resulted in the destruction of Jerusalem and First Temple and the exile of much of the population to Babylon. In 538 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire conquered Babylon, and the Jews who had been exiled there were allowed to return to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. In 332 BCE, the area was conquered by Alexander the Great, the king of the Greek kingdom of Macedon. After Alexander's death, the area was ruled by the Ptolemaic Empire, which was based out of Egypt from 301 to 200 BCE, and then the Seleucid Empire from 200 to 167 BCE. Between 167 and 141 BCE, the Jews rebelled against their rulers and eventually became an independent Jewish kingdom. In 63 BCE, the area again was under foreign rule when it was conquered by the Romans. The Romans appointed their own king, and by 6 CE the region was fully incorporated in the Roman Empire as the province of Judea. Antisemitism became widespread in Alexandria when Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. In 38 CE, riots against the Jewish population resulted in the death of many, and in the Jews being forced into one area of the city. In 66 CE, the Jews started to rebel against the Roman Empire's oppressive rule. This was the start of a series of large-scale revolts, the last of which ended in 136 CE. The Jewish-Roman wars had a devastating impact on the Jewish people, transforming them from a major population in the eastern Mediterranean into a dispersed and persecuted minority. Many Jews were killed, expelled, or sold into slavery following each revolt. Jews were banned from residing in the vicinity of Jerusalem, which the Romans rebuilt into the pagan colony of Aelia Capitolina, and the province of Judea was renamed to Syria Palestina. Although early Christians were also persecuted by the Romans, Christianity was still able to spread quickly throughout the Roman Empire. It was a religion that was accepting of Gentiles, or non-Jews, and the conversion was an easy process. By 381, Christianity became the only legitimate religion of the Roman Empire. The Christian Roman Empire made it increasingly difficult for Jewish populations. Increasing restrictions were placed on the Jews. Also, the idea that it was the Jews that killed Jesus was being spread throughout the empire. This made Jewish life hard in the Roman Empire. Some Jews at that time sought refuge outside of the Roman Empire. Some migrated to Arabia, where they spread their monotheistic ideas. Christianity also reached this area as well by the early 4th century. By the 7th century, a new monotheistic religion with the same ancient roots as Judaism and Christianity was emerging. This was the birth of Islam, and it spread quickly. In less than 100 years, Islamic empires controlled much of the Middle East, North Africa and Spain. Christianity continued to spread even after the fall of the Roman Empire. It became the state religion of many European countries during the medieval period from the 5th century to the late 15th century. Many restrictions were still placed on Jews during this time period. They were limited in the jobs which they could perform, as many craftsmen formed guilds in which Jews were banned from joining due to laws prohibiting them from being a part of any Christian organization. Some of the jobs they were allowed to perform were tax and rent collection, as well as money lending, since lending money for interest was considered a sin for Christians. Therefore, they were considered a necessary evil in most Christian communities. This led to a negative view of Jews, as Christians saw them as the ones taking their money, while performing no valuable service for them. Some European rulers also made it illegal for the Jewish population to own land. With the fall of the Roman Empire, Spain became part of the Visigothic kingdom. Under the Catholic Visigoths' rule, many restrictions were placed on Jews. They were subjected to forced conversions and slavery. Between 711 and 780, Spain was conquered by Muslims from North Africa, ending the Visigoths' rule. Life was good for Jews initially in Spain under Muslim rule. But that ended abruptly under a new Muslim leader, and they were given the choice of either converting to Islam, leaving Spain, or dying. Spain was eventually brought back under Christian rule, but life was no better for Jews. 1096 started the Crusades, in which the Holy Land of the Middle East was to be reclaimed by Christians. Even though their main goal was to free the Christians from Muslims, and many Muslims they did slaughter, many thousands of Jews were also killed as heretics along the way through Europe with their possessions stolen as loot. In 1215, the Catholic Church decreed that Jews should wear distinct clothing so as to distinguish them from Christians. In England, the king could place large tax requirements on the Jewish population without approval from Parliament. In 1290, all Jews were expelled from England, and all of their possessions were confiscated by the crown. Also, during this time, Jews were commonly believed to kill Christian children to perform rituals. In 1492, all Jews were required to leave Spain. They were allowed to take any possession, as long as it was not gold, silver, or money, thus robbing them of any wealth they had. In the 13th century, it was believed in many European communities that the Jews had caused the plague with poison that they received from the devil. It was believed that the poison was poured into their wells, and was thrown into the air. This was yet another reason to attack the Jewish population. Many were killed by angry Christian mobs for this reason. Throughout the late Middle Ages, Jews were expelled from many European communities. In the 1500s, a new Christian religion started by Martin Luther began to take hold in Northern Europe. This was a result of the corruption in the Catholic Church. At first, Martin Luther, the founder of the Protestant Church, believed that the Jews would accept his new religion and convert to Christianity. He believed that the reason why they didn't convert before was because of the treatment they received from the Catholic Church, and because they saw the corruption firsthand when their land and possessions were stolen by the Christians. When Jews didn't convert to his new religious faith, Martin Luther wrote about a plan that would destroy the Jewish people, by burning all synagogues, destroying Jewish holy books, forbidding rabbis to teach, destroying Jewish homes, banning Jews from roads and markets, forbidding Jews from making loans, seizing Jewish property, forcing Jews to do hard labor, and expelling Jews from Christian towns. 400 years later, Hitler and the Nazis would put Luther's plan into action. Hitler did not start antisemitism, but he fully and completely embraced it. Even though there was over 100,000 German and Austrian Jews that fought for their homeland during the First World War, many Germans, including Hitler, believed that Germany lost because of the Jews. Hitler compared Jews to germs that cause disease, and that the only way to prevent the disease is by removing the cause. He blamed all the problems of Germany and the world on the Jews. But he did not start these ideas. He just took advantage of existing prejudices that were based on several hundred years of Christian thinking. Nazi ideology was spread among the general public, and even children in schools were taught that the Jews were a different race, and were inferior. When Hitler invaded Poland, millions of Jews came under Nazi rule. Jews were forced to live in certain areas called ghettos, and had to wear a badge to show that they were Jewish. They were robbed of their property and rights. These were things that had already happened in the past. By 1941, the Nazis and many other collaborators began a plan which was known as the Final Solution. Many Jews were forced into hard labor for the German war effort until they either died from overwork or from starvation. Many others were either rounded up and murdered immediately, or sent off to concentration camps to be killed. All told, when the war was over, approximately 6 million Jews were murdered.